For those of us who are in the business of training and helping other people, it's important for us to realize that oftentimes just training our customer isn't enough. And we need to be actively working to train others around our customer on how best to help them achieve the transformation that they want to achieve. So it's really important for us to ask ourselves, what's the best way for me to serve my customer? So there's lots of ways you can serve your customer. And one of those ways involves thinking about who else can help in this transformation that the person who bought my course is trying to achieve. Because once you identify that and truly start focusing on that person, you can start achieving amazing things. Like, let's say, for example, their spouse or partner. One of the challenges that we have in the training business is that oftentimes the spouse or partner says, we could have spent that money better someplace else. Or you keep taking these courses and you never achieve anything. You never come up with a product to sell. You never change. You never do whatever. And by getting the spouse and partner not only on your side, but knowing what is being taught and supporting that process of being taught, all of a sudden, the transformation is not just that person working on it. It's that person and the person who so loves and supports them most to start to do this. Other ideas. A parent, especially if you're working with teens. A personal coach. So if they're smart enough to have a personal coach, perhaps you want the personal coach involved so the personal coach understands what you're teaching and can support the process in there. What about this one? A boss or a supervisor. Now, you don't want to do anything that's going to get them fired, but sometimes that boss, and so let's say you're doing a copywriting course. Okay, wouldn't it help to have the boss and supervisor understand what's going on so they can support and encourage in that process? Because they'll get a better copywriter out the other end. And so my recommendation is that you think more holistically and start to actually create content just for the support people in your customer's life. Covering things like, this is what they're learning. This is what they're doing. In other words, these are the assignments that they're working on this week. And here's how you can best support them in this process. Now, oftentimes, this process requires some initial training because here's what happens. Your customer bought into the communication before they launched, as you launched, before they purchased. And so they have a foundation of belief, of knowledge, of understanding. The people around them don't have that at all. And so sometimes you have to actually start by sort of presenting what you presented in your sales material to the support people so that they can understand what's really going on. Then periodic communications that follow after that. So maybe a weekly 10-minute video, maybe an email that summarizes what's going on. And then I also like to put in Q&A sessions on a regular basis where the support people can come on and talk and get their questions answered about what is going on. Now, there is a side case here that we should talk about, and that is when someone is doing something that helps the company, maybe the boss paid for it, but the boss isn't actually the one taking the course. So let me just give you an example of this. The boss recognizes that your marketing training is something that he wants the company to be doing. The boss doesn't want to take that course. And so they pay for it and get the marketing director to take your program. That's great. But here's the challenge. The boss has a certain set of beliefs. Oftentimes, this is the way it's always been done. This is the way it works. You are telling your customer oftentimes a different set of beliefs. What you're doing is you're setting up a fight there, which some bosses are mature enough, some employees are mature enough that it doesn't turn into a fight, but it will always create some, I don't understand, some potential conflict, clearly some differences in opinion and direction to be set. And so it's oftentimes valuable in these situations to give the boss a regular executive summary of what you're doing. Now go back. Maybe an initial executive summary and then ongoing executive summaries that talk about what they're learning, what you're teaching them, what you're asking them to do, and how that boss can best support them in this process. So basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to do this, you're communicating with the boss, you're communicating with the support people, you're communicating with all these people in your words so that they, your customer, don't have to try to explain to that support person as well as you can, because they simply can't. They don't know your material like you do. And so you explain it in your words, and then if they need it to be personalized, they will have that conversation and continue on. Now, what happens when you do this? Well, first off, before we talk about that, let's talk about how you do this. I actually recommend that you set up a separate portal where the support people have a login to that. You don't charge them extra for it, but they have a login. And in that support portal, it's designed just for the support people. And so it's like, hey, so glad you're here. I understand that you're here because you're a person who's helping my customer to achieve the transformation that they're after. So the purpose of this portal is to explain to you what we're teaching them so that you can best support them in this process, because I bet you'd like them to achieve that success as much as we'd like them to. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you this initial piece of training so that you understand the whole purpose and what's going on. In addition to that, each week I'm going to do a quick 10-minute video or so that will explain to you what we covered that week, what we talked about, what their assignments are, and most importantly, how best you can support them in this process. So that'll happen each week. I'll send you an email out that says it's there, and then I just invite you to do that and then hold a conversation with them so that you can both understand where things are and help them in this process. Wouldn't that be cool? Good. We're so glad that you're there to support and care for this person. And I'm so proud of you in this process. Okay, unquote, done with that. So I just gave you an example of what we're doing. Again, a separate portal. They're not seeing all the material you're giving to your customer. They're seeing the executive summaries and the communication that you have just for them. Now, what is the result of doing this? Number one, they'll tend to be a huge fan of yours because they've watched their friend, spouse, partner, whatever, go through course after course with no support and fail over and over again. And now they're seeing you getting them in the game to help. Now, some spouses and partners and things like that, they'll just not do it. That's fine. That's not a problem. That's their agency to make that choice. But if they choose to come in and do it, it will probably help your customer achieve what happens. In addition to that, when they do come in and they are actively participating, they'll become your fan, which makes it easier for you to sell your customer on the next steps. So maybe the higher end program, maybe the continuity program, whatever it is that you're going to sell them afterwards. And oftentimes they become such a fan that they start referring you and your program to others. Sometimes they take it themselves. All right. So let me know. Are you doing a support partner program right now? Can you see how it could be valuable? Can you see how it's probably not too hard to do? And can you see how it's probably a good idea to do this? Let me know your thoughts in the chat. This is Don Crowther saying, just go do this stuff.